When I got to the apartment, the key didn't fit. I stood there for a moment, blinking hard, thinking maybe the swelling in my fingers was worse than I thought. I tried again, twisted, wiggled, forced it. Nothing. A note was taped to the frame. Change the lock for safety. Don't panic, your stuff's in storage. We're in Auckland now. Please don't call us while we're happy. Love, Mom and Dad. I didn't drop the note. I didn't rip it. I just stared at the word happy, underlined twice in Mom's handwriting, like a warning. The cab driver, still waiting with my duffel bag, stepped onto the curb. Everything okay, miss? Yeah, I lied. Just forgot I moved. He helped me load the bag back into the trunk. I asked him to drive to a cheap motel near the hospital. The place I'd spent 6 weeks recovering from a crash that nearly tore my pelvis in half and fractured my wrist so badly, I still couldn't hold a pen the right way. The night I woke up from surgery, the nurse said, "Your sister's been calling." But no one ever visited. The next morning, I asked for my phone. There were 2 voicemails, both from my dad. The first, "Hey kiddo, sorry we can't be there, things are a bit hectic with the move. Get some rest, alright?" The second, "We're wheels up in a few hours. Don't call us while we're happy, okay? We'll check in once we're settled." He chuckled at the end, like it was some kind of joke. The cab rolled through downtown traffic. I felt nothing. I wasn't even angry, yet. Just a weird, full-body silence, like my blood was listening for a sound it knew would never come. When the motel clerk slid the key across the counter, I signed the form slowly with my left hand, shaky and cramped. The pen scratched. The clerk smiled. "Here for business or pleasure?" I looked at her. "Neither," I said. "I just got left behind." The room was gray and cold. I pulled the curtains closed, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my duffel. No parents. No house. No couch to collapse on. No food waiting in the fridge. No voicemail saying, "Call us if you need anything." Only that line, "Don't call us while we're happy." I thought about the car crash that happened 6 blocks from the flower shop I used to manage. A delivery truck ran a red light. My sedan folded like paper. They had to cut me out. The doctor said I was lucky. He said if I'd been 2 feet forward, I'd be done. Instead, I got metal screws in my hip, a shattered wrist, and a face that didn't look the same in the mirror. My sister had called once, just once, right after surgery. She asked if I could sign a few documents related to the family trust. "Just for simplification," she'd said. I was on painkillers. I remember mumbling something. Then she hung up. That was the last time we spoke. Now they were in New Zealand. New effing Zealand. I didn't even know they'd applied for visas. I texted her. "You changed the locks?" Nothing. I called Mom. Straight to voicemail. I called Dad. Blocked. I laid back on the motel bed and pressed my good hand over my eyes. I thought about all the years I'd defended them, how I'd tell my friends they're just busy, or it's complicated with my sister. But this wasn't complicated. It was abandonment. Deliberate. Signed, sealed, and postmarked from 10,000 miles away. They left after my crash, they moved, and all I got was a taped-up note on a locked door and a punchline about their happiness. My body ached in every joint. My chest hurt worse. The crash had snapped bone, but this was something different. I picked up the note again. It smelled faintly like my mother's perfume. "My full name is Elise Hartley. I'm 33 years old. I run an online floral boutique that specializes in rare bloom arrangements for long-distance events, memorials, court dates, divorce hearings. I started it in the back room of a shared apartment 5 years ago. We ship emotion in a box. Pain, mostly. Sometimes closure. I live alone now in a 1-bedroom rental above a laundromat. I have no pets. No roommate, just a coffee machine that whines every morning, and a chipped ceramic frog my father gave me when I was 6. He won it at a county fair. The frog is the only thing I took from the old house before they changed the locks. Our house used to be beige, 2 stories, no soul. Mom kept silk flowers in every vase, and Dad had a cabinet full of unopened liquor. My sister had a room twice the size of mine and a walk-in closet, even though she wore the same 4 outfits in rotation. Somehow she was always cold. "Lauren's just sensitive," Mom would say when I turned the thermostat back up. They always said that. "Lauren needs this. Lauren's going through a lot." Lauren didn't mean it like that. Meanwhile, I got silence, instructions, warnings not to rock the boat. I learned early to be useful. When Lauren stole my car at 19 and drove to Vegas, I was the one who wired her bail money. When she crashed her credit score borrowing against a student loan she never used, I gave her my login so she could apply for jobs under my name. When she sobbed to our parents that she felt like a failure, I was the one asked to make myself smaller. Just for now. Just until she got on her feet. She's still on those feet. My parents paid for her visa processing, moved to a country that doesn't even recognize me as part of their household anymore. The crash changed something, yes. but not in them. In me. In the hospital, I remembered things I'd pushed down. 2 years before the accident, I was dating a man named Tyler Quinn. CPA, stable, polite. He had a nervous laugh and hated confrontation. My parents loved him. "You finally found someone safe," my mother said once. "No more artsy disasters," he proposed. I said yes. I shouldn't have. 3 weeks before the engagement party, I walked in on Lauren in his apartment. They weren't just talking. She had his shirt on. My sister. My fiancé. Tyler scrambled to explain. "We got drunk after the family dinner. She was upset about something. I didn't." Lauren just sat there, legs crossed, calm. "I needed someone," she said. I left. I never spoke to him again. My parents? They said it was a mistake. They said, "Don't blow this out of proportion." They said, "Family is everything." Then they kept inviting him to dinners. Lauren never apologized. She got a new boyfriend 6 months later. A visa consultant from Christchurch. They broke up. But he introduced her to the immigration path. That's how the New Zealand plan started. They said it was temporary, that they were just trying something new. But when I had the accident, when my body was broken, and my shop was shuttered, and I was counting pills just to sleep, they left. And they made it clear it was easier this way. I didn't matter enough to stay for. Or even call. In the hospital, I tried to access the family health insurance. The billing nurse frowned. "You're not listed." I laughed. "There's been a mistake." She pulled up the file. "Removed 2 years ago, after your 29th birthday." That was the same month I caught Tyler and Lauren. The policy was still active, under Dad, Mom, and Lauren. I remember feeling cold. "I'll pay out of pocket," I told her. I did. I sold my engagement ring to cover the first round of rehab. Pawned the backup camera I used for product shots. Bartered with a friend to redesign my website in exchange for half my mailing list. No one helped. No one asked to. So when I got out of the motel and into that tiny rental above the laundromat, I didn't bring photos. I didn't call my parents. I didn't tell Lauren where I was. Instead, I started digging. I looked into the insurance removal. I found out the paperwork had been signed electronically, with my digital authorization box checked. It had been filed from my old email, the one Lauren used to access job applications. I printed every page. I made a list. Then I walked into a small legal clinic on 8th Street, sat across from a woman named Dara Patel, and laid out every document. "I'm not looking for revenge," I told her. She read in silence for a long time. Then she looked at me. "You're looking for recognition," she said, "and maybe justice." "I'm tired of pretending this didn't happen." Dara nodded. "Let's start with the insurance fraud. It's clean. The policy was family-based, and you were removed without consent while still financially dependent for medical care. That's grounds for review. And if we file, they'll have to answer." I sat back. For the first time in months, I felt something return to my chest. Not relief. Not yet. Just leverage. The frog sat on the windowsill. I looked at it and thought, "You're the only thing they ever gave me without taking it back." Dara moved fast. Within a week, she'd filed a formal, retroactive fraud claim with the insurance company. I watched her click through the online portal, unshaken by the bureaucratic wall of error messages and "please upload documentation" prompts. "They count on you giving up," she said. "But we won't." The claim was simple. I had been unlawfully removed from a shared family policy while still actively receiving care without proper consent or notice. The signature on the removal form didn't match my legal one. The IP address belonged to a location 1,000 miles from where I was living at the time. The cherry on top? The email that authorized the change was no longer traceable to me, but still routed through a subdomain registered to my sister. When Dara showed me that, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so Lauren. Her specialty had always been skipping steps, getting what she wanted by making everyone else bend, including reality. I signed the affidavit. Dara submitted a subpoena request for email logs. Within 2 days, the insurance provider acknowledged the claim and froze the account. A week later, I got a text from Mom. "Can you call me?" I didn't respond. Then Lauren called. 3 times. I let it ring. Finally, she left a voicemail. Her voice was clipped, measured. "Elise, I just found out about the claim. We had no idea you were going through this. If there's something you need, let's talk. Privately. Please don't make this into something bigger than it is. No apology. Just control language. The kind you use when your mess starts to smell public." 2 days later, I got an email from a lawyer in Auckland. They were representing my parents and seeking clarification regarding a pending fraud review tied to shared insurance accounts. The wording was polite, but the subtext screamed. They were scared. Good. Dara read the letter and said, "We hold." So we did. In the meantime, I rebuilt the boutique's site. I changed the name, no more Petal Parcel, the name Mom had picked when I first launched. It became Saltflower. Unapologetic, grounded, with edges. I posted one update to our social feed. We're back, and this time no one's getting erased. Orders tripled in a week. Apparently honesty sells. Still, I didn't expect what happened next. One Thursday, I was at the rehab center for my last physical therapy appointment. My gait was improving. My wrist was still stiff, but functional. I had just finished a walking drill when a nurse waved me over. "There's someone here asking for you." I blinked. "Who?" "She says she's your sister, Lauren." I walked out into the waiting area, and there she was, wearing a white blouse and jeans too pristine for travel. Not a hair out of place. She looked around like the walls were beneath her. "Elise," she said, like we were running into each other at brunch. I crossed my arms. "You flew 13 hours to show up here?" She smiled too quickly. "I was already in the States, just for a few days." "Right, how did you know I was here?" "I have your medical summary," she said before catching herself. "Well, I saw it when you removed me from the policy?" She flushed. "That was years ago. You weren't using it. You thought you'd just clean things up and hope I wouldn't notice." She stepped closer. "Can we not do this here? I just want to talk." "This is the only place I feel safe," I said, "so we're doing it here." Her eyes darted around. A few nurses looked on. She lowered her voice. "You're blowing this out of proportion. The insurance thing, it was a mistake. We were trying to streamline the process for the visa applications. Dad thought, you used my identity to secure full dependent status for yourself. You got better benefits, faster processing." She didn't deny it. Instead, she softened her voice. "I didn't think it would hurt you. Because I was already invisible, right? Elise? No, let me say this out loud so you can hear it in a room that isn't covered in your perfume and gaslight. You took everything. You took my car, you took my fiancé, you took my insurance, and then you left, while I was still in recovery." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I didn't know how bad it was," she said finally. "You never asked." She stood there, arms limp. For the first time she looked human. Not polished, not the favorite, just tired, uneasy. I stepped forward. "You have two options. You can withdraw your lawyer's letter and acknowledge what happened, or I take this all the way to court." She looked up. "You'd really sue the family?" "I already did." A long silence. "Then, they might lose their residency." I didn't blink. "Not my problem." She stared at me for another second, then walked out. No goodbye, no hug, just the clack of her heels on the tile. Later that night, Mom emailed again. "I know you're angry. I'm sorry we weren't there for you. Please, Elise, we're trying to make a life here. Help us fix this." I stared at the screen for a long time, then I replied, "I'm not angry. I'm just finally visible. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I signed it with a picture of the frog mug. Because some things, they can't erase. I expected silence after that email. I thought the last thread had snapped. But 2 days later I got a call from Dara. "You're going to want to sit down," she said. "Their lawyer just filed a motion to expedite the case. They want the claim dropped immediately." "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because Immigration New Zealand was reviewing their residency application, and now they've flagged their financial disclosures." I let the phone rest against my cheek. I could hear typing on Dara's end, fast and exact. "They tied their visa application to assets that legally weren't theirs," she continued. "Insurance records, family trust earnings. Your name was removed to consolidate Lauren's eligibility as a dependent caretaker. But now that you've raised fraud, it complicates the whole picture." "They used me," I said. "Yes," Dara replied, "but not anymore." By the end of the week, we'd filed a notice of motion response, reaffirming the evidence and citing 2 additional witness statements, one from the rehab center and another from a former insurance agent who reviewed the original family policy. That was the night the messages started again. "Lauren first. Mom's crying every day. Please, Elise, just talk to her. This doesn't just affect them. I'll lose my job sponsorship too." Then Mom, "Your father is very stressed. This is serious now. Be reasonable. We can pay for your rehab. We can fix this." "Elise, we're family." I didn't answer. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and worked late into the night, packing new orders, managing customer service, uploading new product photos for Saltflower's Survivor's Day bouquet collection. It was my busiest season yet. I shipped a vase to a woman in Austin whose daughter had walked out after 20 years. A box of deep red tulips to a man celebrating his first divorce anniversary. Sometimes flowers say what no one else will. On Saturday, the rehab center hosted a graduation gathering for patients finishing their final rounds of therapy. It wasn't much, just tea, cookies, soft music, but it felt real. A nurse handed me a certificate in a paper sleeve. I held it with both hands. My wrist barely shook. I hadn't told anyone to come. So when I saw a familiar pair of hands gripping a purse too tightly by the door, I froze. Mom. She looked older than I remembered, smaller, as if Auckland's sunlight hadn't quite touched her the way she'd hoped. She stepped forward, her voice quiet. Elise, I had to come. I didn't move. She reached for me, hesitated, then let her hand drop. We didn't know it was this serious, she said. We thought you'd be okay. You've always been so strong. My jaw tightened. So you left because I was strong? You're twisting my words. No, I said. You just don't like hearing them out loud. The room around us buzzed, soft laughter, the clink of plastic cups, but all I could hear was the pounding in my ears. Mom's lip trembled. Your father didn't want to go, Elise. He cried on the plane. I blinked. He still changed the locks. I didn't know he was going to do that, she whispered. But you didn't stop him either. Her eyes searched my face. We were scared. Lauren said, she said you wanted space, that you'd be fine, that the crash wasn't that bad. I felt my nails dig into my palms. I was unconscious for 6 hours. My hip had to be reconstructed. I was eating through a straw for 10 days. I didn't know, she said again, softer now. You didn't want to. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her shoulders drooped. We need your help, she said finally. The visa's been put on hold. They say we need to clear the insurance issue, or they won't let us reapply. I stared at her. So you came to ask me to fix the thing you broke. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. If we lose the apartment, we sold everything here, Elise. You sold my share too. A beat. I want to make this right, she said. We'll undo the trust. We'll include you again. Just help us. I looked down at the certificate in my hand. The paper was warm now. My name was printed in black ink. Elise Hartley. Completion of recovery therapy. I had earned every letter of it. Mom reached into her bag and pulled something out, carefully, hesitantly. The frog. The chipped green ceramic one from my childhood. The one I thought was still in my apartment before they packed it all away. I kept it, she said. I knew you'd come back. No, I said. You hoped I wouldn't notice. She didn't deny it. Give the frog to Lauren, I said. It matches her spine. A stunned silence. I took a deep breath. My chest expanded, unblocked. The words came calmly now. You can call my lawyer. She has the terms. Elise, please. I've made my peace, I said. Now you make yours. And I turned around. Behind me, a nurse clapped for another graduate. A man in a wheelchair laughed at something someone said. And I walked forward, steady, without looking back. A week after the confrontation at the rehab center, the email came in. From Dara, subject line, update, immigration review status. I clicked it without breathing. Elise, the immigration office has issued a notice of ineligibility to your parents based on falsified financial records, dependent status inconsistencies, and an unresolved insurance fraud claim tied to their application. Their visa expires next month. They will need to voluntarily leave or face legal removal. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. I read it twice. Then again, they were being sent home, just like that. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly, but there was a deep, satisfying stillness inside me, a recognition of balance restored. For the first time in years, something that had been taken from me was now untouchable. Not because I'd asked nicely, but because I'd refused to disappear. I forwarded the email to my new accountant, CC'd Dara, and attached a formal statement releasing all future claims against the family trust, on one condition. That my parents and Lauren sign a notarized declaration stating they knowingly excluded me from coverage and misrepresented their dependency claims in the visa process. It was strategic, but it was also personal. I wanted it written, typed, signed, that they had failed me, and that I had survived anyway. 3 days passed. Then came a phone call. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Dad. Elise, your mother's crying. She hasn't slept. Look, I won't lie. We made mistakes. But this is too far. You've made your point. Now please, can we talk? I don't want to lose the only family I have left. I deleted it. The next morning a letter arrived. Certified. Signed by all 3 of them. The statement. The admission. It read like an apology couched in legalese, but it was still real. Still binding. Still mine. I held it in my hands at the post office for a full minute before I walked out into the parking lot. The sun was high. Bright. And for once, I didn't flinch. Later that day, I called the lawyer in Auckland. This is Elise Hartley, I said. I've received your client's signed declaration. I will not be pursuing further litigation. You may inform immigration they will receive no additional obstacles from my end. The man on the other end exhaled hard. Thank you, Miss Hartley. I didn't do it for them, I said. I did it for me. That weekend, I hosted a relaunch party for Saltflower. I rented a rooftop venue downtown. Nothing fancy. Just good wine, clean air, music, and enough space for 50 friends, clients, and a few new colleagues. I wore navy, stood barefoot on the fake grass, and raised a toast in front of a modest banner that read, "We ship what survives." The room laughed. It felt good. When the music quieted, I stepped forward with the frog in my hands, the chipped one Mom tried to give back. I held it up. This, I said, was once the only thing I owned that my family hadn't taken away. A few guests looked at each other, unsure if they should laugh. I smiled. Now, it's just decoration. I set it down on the main table, next to the cards, flowers, and boxes of guest giveaways, tiny hand-poured candles labeled "Burn What Broke You." I watched it for a second. Then I turned and let myself be pulled into a conversation about delivery schedules and cross-border shipping. Mom emailed again that night. It was short. "We're sorry. We truly are. If you ever want to come see us, you'd be welcome. We miss you. Love, Mom." No demands, no guilt, just a slow, tired recognition that the rules had changed. I didn't write back, not yet, but I kept the email. They left New Zealand 3 weeks later. Lauren's job offer wasn't extended. Their visa expired without renewal. I don't know where they're living now, a relative maybe, a friend. But I know they finally know what it feels like to be uninvited. A year after the crash, I did something I never thought I would. I went back to the site. The corner of Marshall and 5th, where the truck came out of nowhere. There's a stoplight there now. The city installed it after 3 other people were hit in the same stretch. I stood on the sidewalk for 10 minutes, just breathing. Then I crossed the street, slow, steady. At the other end, I smiled at nothing and whispered, "Still here." Because I was. Still here. Still me. But never theirs again. People think betrayal comes like lightning, a sudden bolt, a loud crack. But the real betrayals, they're quiet, cumulative. 1,000 tiny decisions made without you, around you, in spite of you. I used to think I was resilient because I kept forgiving, because I kept shrinking myself to fit back into a family that never left room for me, that made their happiness conditional on my silence. But now I know, resilience isn't about bending until you break. It's about refusing to disappear. They left during the worst moment of my life. They didn't check in, they didn't call. They sent a note that said, "Don't call us while we're happy." What they didn't realize, what they never learned, is that happiness built on someone else's erasure doesn't last. I didn't get revenge, not really. I got clarity, I got leverage, I got a life I built from the wreckage. The frog sits in my office now, I keep it chipped. Unfixed, because that's how I remember who I was, before I stopped apologizing for needing to be seen. Sometimes my fingers brush its edge while I type out orders or balance budgets. Sometimes I glance at it and smile. Not because I'm bitter, but because I know I survived, and because for once, they are the ones learning to live without me. And that's peace.